Welcome to Common Hood. This your host, Simon P. And I'm flanked by my two righteous brothers that's teaching me history and you history because it's so deep. You won't be sitting with us no 2 or 3 hours. So it's going to be small bit sizes by the piece. And I'm going to let Khali and Dr. Shakur give it to you. And if you have a clarification, I think they have a comment button. But please hit the like, subscribe, and share. And today we're going to talk about the origin of civilization. I always say this word right. I learned this from Khali and my brother here, Shakur. He says Alkebalon, and you say Alkebalon. At the end of the day, that's what the original term was, that Africa was made up. So when we got in this discussion today, I thought that Africa was the original of our civilization. But we had a biblical discussion somewhat. And Dr. Shakur says they just got the 4 rivers in the Holy Bible. I'm just going to name them, Dr. Shakur, and I'm going to let you talk about these 4 rivers and break them down. And then we're going to bring, y'all just come on in and fill it in. So the first river was called the Pison. Am I saying that right? Right, the Pison. And they say that river is debatable. It ain't really been found yet, but it is what it is. That thing is called Gihon, which is by Ethiopia, and then the Hiddekel, am I saying that right? But they call it the Tigris, and the Euphrates. Now that before y'all get into, I'm gonna let y'all break down how they try to divide the different races. And last time we had met, we was talking about the races. I'm like, okay, y'all mentioned Caucasians, Black, Hispanic, Asians, but I'm like, there's Indians as well. How did that fall into that?
You asking the question?
I asked the question. The question is on those 4 rivers. How do we get to that point of this story?
We start talking about history and what have you. There's so many different viewpoints. I think in general, what people should understand is that people of color, Black people, since you want to use that term, are basically the founders of civilization as we know it. Different historians are going to use different different points in time. So rather than going through that, the key that we want to understand that the origin of civilization started in what we call Archipelago or Africa. Okay, from my understanding, I look at the Nile River, the Blue and the White Nile, going all the way down to Uganda. We're looking at Mount Kilimanjaro, which is 19,000 feet, and the Earth evolves 19,000 miles per second, as they say. Okay, so 19 is a very mystical number. So we look at the upper Egypt is in going further towards the equator. Okay, like in modern day Sudan, you have like over 80 to 100 pyramids there. So the origin of civilization, from not only just what I've read, but from visions and what have you that I've had, also started at the base of the Nile Valley, which I would say would be modern day Uganda. That's just my viewpoint. Now, what they call the Middle East, Iran and northern Pakistan and India and all those places, that was a part of Africa too. Okay, but the British and the French, and when they colonized, and the Spanish and Portuguese, when all these people went out and tried to colonize the world, in order to win, they had to create division. And by creating division, they create these anthropology departments, history departments, and what have you, where they start reclassifying people to say who's a Caucasian and who's not. So North Africa, as we know it, in Egypt, according to them, even right now, is considered Caucasian. Okay, which if you've gone to North Africa, especially Morocco and even Algeria, the people look just like us. In Egypt, they look just like us.
Well, you saying North Africa? I thought the predominantly white people stayed in South
North Africa, man. The Moors were in North Africa. Tariq the Great and all them went straight through North Africa into Spain and half of what we call modern day France for over 700, 900 years until Charles the Hammer backed them up. Okay, depending on how you want to look at the history. Okay,
right.
So the point is this: we can pick different points. Ancient Mizra or Kemet, or what we call Egypt, to my understanding, had 50 dynasties.
Okay.
So it might be 100,000-year-old history or 200,000-year-old history. But Europeans are going to say history's only started 6,000 years ago.
Well,
5,000 years
I
ago.
want to let Khali handle this when he said the history, because Khali had mentioned something about the Bible, and you had mentioned about this Garden of Eden story that the Greek and Romans kind of insinuated that. I'm assuming they made up the story about those four rivers, saying this was a civilization. Then they started dividing with the Canaanites, the Hamites, and this and that. Elaborate on that when you shared with that when we were talking.
Reputable modern scholars in areas like archaeology, biology, history, there is no credible, reputable disagreement that the origin point of our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, is somewhere Central East to slightly south of Central East Africa.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a Garden of Eden, that's where it was. And Homo sapiens sapiens is at least 200,000 years ago. All these different rivers and such are just floodplains. They are areas where agriculture began to rise because of rich soil. This is humans following the environment. It's all just a matter of settlement patterns, and settlement patterns always proceed from where you start to where you get to. There are no magical skips. You don't have human beings arising totally separate yet identical species in different parts of the world. That is a fantasy. So all these names, Alkebulan, other names for that continent, for its nations and the landmass itself, Tameri, Ta-Nehisi, and the kingdoms that preceded Egypt or Kemet. Nubia, Kush, more pyramids down there than there are as you move toward the Mediterranean. And a lot of people get confused, as Shakur pointed out, when you get toward the Mediterranean, that's actually Lower Egypt, because they're calling upper and lower. Upper is where the river starts, lower is where it gets to. But those are flipped on the compass we use today, where north is up to the Mediterranean. So Lower Egypt is up there coming out into the delta, that very rich delta that was the world's first agricultural breadbasket. And humans accomplish where they are first and where they are best supported and where they were living the best with the environment and creating a vast civilization, a monumental civilization. I mean, when I say monument, I'm talking about these actual stone monuments. We don't build anything today that lasts for 5,000 years. So this is a rising where humans are first. And so we're not claiming superiority or inferiority. We're claiming primacy, i.e., first. Where do you start and you proceed from there? And so this very complicated book that we're talking about, he begins the whole book, and these are like didactic lectures, extemporaneous, just speaking. You're seeing transcripts of things he delivered in lectures in classrooms. But he's trying to make the point right up front that you have to let loose of the picture of history we've been given. You have to prepare for the idea that everything you've believed, or a lot of it, can be very wrong. And that's difficult. Change is not easy. When I first went into the church my mother took me to as a child and announced that Jesus was black, I thought people were going to rejoice. And the ushers were catching people fainting when I announced this. Change is, even positive change requires work. So this book is about really working. That's why I want to have live reading circles and have people discuss it, read it to each other, because he covers so much. Shakur has just pointed this out. He covers so much in a short time that you need vast stores of knowledge behind what look like short statements he's making. There's vast knowledge covered behind some of these statements.
Okay, you made a point of saying that it's not about subjugating someone to a lower class. You're just sticking with the premises that the origins of civilization, without a shadow of a doubt, that if there was a story that was made up by the Greek philosophers that created the Bible, that the Garden of Eden, the story came that the origination had to come from Africa. That's what we're saying, correct?
Mm.
And when I mentioned earlier to you, Dr. Shakur, I mentioned the four rivers. I say that the four rivers that they mentioned, did it mention, was that reflecting to certain different races coming from those different rivers?
Well, let me say this. Everybody had different views about races. You know, all the anthropology and history show that the origin of civilization is in East Africa, as Brother Khali just said, in the Goldivide Gorge. That's one place. But what I like to say to people is this too, dealing with practicality, that there were black civilizations, and now I'm gonna flip it right here in America. Now, more scientist brothers talk about it quite a bit. Now, Collie and I are both from Detroit, and when Detroit had its 300-year-old history, the newspaper there, it was a black newspaper that came out and said that Detroit had a 6,000-year-old history, and there were pyramids. We have a street there called Mound Road, but they call it
What's the name of it?
Mound Road because
Mound, as an M-O-U-N.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So they were mound builders or pyramid builders in pyramids in Detroit. And I've talked to anthropology instructors here at the University of Florida and other geologists that told me all through the South of the United States there are pyramids that they keep hidden. There's a big one up there in Georgia.
That's new to me.
Okay. Now, right here in Florida, and not just the Seminoles who are black, but the majority of the Native Americans that are right here in where we live were African and were black. And that's the Cortez and Peraza and all the rest of them came through and did the slaughtering that they did and genocide. You understand? But so people need to start, we can go all the way back 200,000 years ago, but for some people that might be too difficult. So let's start, you can start back and come up, or you can come up and go back. The Native Americans that were here in this country were black, especially in the southern part of the United States. Okay, and in the south end and in the northeast, the Native Americans they show the ones with the long straight black hair. That was on the western part of what we call the western part of the United States. They came over through the Bering Straits. Okay, so they're more Mongoloid, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
But all the Native Americans in South America, Central America, Mexico, and through the South, what we call the South now, Florida, as well as going up to New York State, New Jersey, Virginia, were African. When I was in Morocco, and I bought just all types of amber and turquoise, I said, this all looks like plain Indians. Just like the artwork and everything. And so they took me to the wise people and say, look, we've been trading back and forth and living back and forth in the United States for over 4,000 or 5,000 years.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, so that was my confirmation, getting it directly from them. And they were surfing too. They say, we've been doing surfboards. And I said, I thought surfboards what they do out in Hawaii. They said, no, we've been doing this for thousands of years. And everybody there looked like just like us. And when I went there, I was dressed like this. And they were talking to me in Arabic and other tongues until I opened my mouth, and they could tell that I wasn't from there, but they couldn't tell by looking at me. We all looked at, when I went there, I was dressed in the traditional clothes. They didn't know me from there. They couldn't tell me from who they were.
What has been the benefit of suppressing this history? Like
control.
What's wrong with it?
Control. If
Okay.
a person has knowledge, I'm sure Brother Khali is going to speak further on this. If a person doesn't have a base knowledge of who they are, then your purpose in life is pointless. And our people have basically collectively have had this problem. Every time Madison Avenue comes out with a style, every time they come up with anything, they use the music industry and the entertainment industry in various forms. Our people go from one thing to the next. Even when they came out, who was the rapper that had what's the thing the babies use? And then he was with
We always have a pacifier.
the pacifier. Who was the rapper?
Flavor Flav?
Yeah, when they did that, I started seeing niggas running around the street with the pacifier in their mouth. So anything that they want to do to take us from here to there, we went from the afro to the Jerry curl. We went from this to that. All they have to do is use the media, and we just flip because we don't have collectively a true knowledge of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we have to buy Gucci and buy this and buy that, and I have to have the most expensive car. Matter of fact, all the billionaires I read about say they don't even own cars. The people that make all these clothes and stuff, they don't even wear them themselves, and half of them don't even like black people.
That's condition of the mind.
Well, you asked me why they do this.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah.
have knowledge of self.
Yeah, knowledge of self.
So I have to do all these things to make myself feel that I'm somebody.
You're like a computer whose
right.
whose memory banks have been wiped, so you are infinitely rewritable by whoever wants to rewrite.
Somebody can rewrite the code on
If you're not driving this kind of car, if you don't have this kind of, so it breaks up families, it causes problems in relationships, it causes crime, it causes all types of things. I have to have this, and if I don't have it, I'm gonna shoot this person or rob them in order to have this, so I can feel that I'm somebody if I'm wearing $600 Jordans. You understand? And all those types of things.
Well, how much for Khali here, how much do you think these concepts of subjugating one to a lower class, slavery was created by the religious pillars? You know, you have the Holy Torah, you know, you have your Bible, you have your Quran, like all of them have some type of myths situated in them. How much do you think those was used as a construct to help recondition your mind to, as you say, like a program or computer, wipe your history clean, then I could write what I want when you don't know thyself?
That there have been both noble and corrupt leaders through all of human history. And there has always been someone to exploit religion. Constantine, many of your Christian congregations recite something called a Nicene Creed. That was written to seal up a conference that Emperor Constantine commanded, because he was adopting Christianity as the rubric for his Holy Roman Catholic Empire. But the doctrinal differences were causing problems. So he told the bishops, satisfy this confusion, get rid of these contradictions. And the bishop said, but no, this is holy. And he lopped off a few heads, and they met immediately. And they created what's called the lost books of the Bible. They ain't lost, they're in the Vatican Library.
That's right.
So that's how the Bible went from Aramaic and Greek into North Alexandria. That's in Egypt. Kemet was where organized Christianity first appeared, with Pantheus and Boetius, two African bishops, and the first martyrs, Felicita, Nymphatum, Perpetua, were African women. So these three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, are all Abrahamic religions. So they are related. But this Bible comes to, you have the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and they weren't even in order. They had Exodus before Genesis. You know, they're leaving before they even got there. But they straightened that out at the Sanhedrin. They passed this book on, became the Old Testament for the followers of Jesus Christ, who, as I say, were first arising in northeast Alkebulan, Africa, Alexandria. So that book was taken by Constantine, revised with that Nicene Creed, and that's what King James revised when he made up his King James version. You open those books, they're on the first page. King James Version is something other than the original. So all these adaptations were made to suit worldly political gains, power and control, the manipulation of religion. And in a time when people were very superstitious, were very uneducated, where transportation and communication were rudimentary at best, it was necessary to give people these deep belief systems to control them. And religion was used in that way by earthly potentates. So we need to know that if you want Christians practicing today, especially Christians of African descent, born in America, need to know that they should look at the Ethiopian Bible as the one that's least altered, closest to the original, preferably learn to read in Amharic or Gez. That's a big reach. I haven't done it yet. But
what's those terms? Amharic and Gez?
Amharic and Gez.
And Gez.
Those are languages you find in Ethiopia or Abyssinia. And this Bible tells you a lot of different things than what you find in King James Version, because King James Version was meant to float the idea of Europe as the spiritual and military and economic leader of the world.
What do you think that this is leading now? They say the pews are less filled with the youth filling the pews in the traditional churches and African American churches. And it's because of their finding of their identity that sometimes they found out that a lot of things that are given has been a lie.
I'd like to interject something on King James and Constantine. First of all, King James killed his mother. And Constantine strangled his wife and killed his son. So they're both murderers and mass people with serious mental health conditions. So they're reading scriptures by people that were murderers and killers. Those are historical facts.
Yeah, but it brings back to the center of a question that I was trying to get to, which is today's African Americans that's have ancestrals that's been wiped out because of the 400 to 500 years of this destruction of one person, or destruction of the black race, rather, but through slavery and the Jim Crow and segregation and everything else that went on. Are the youth of the day that we're calling crazy because they're not coming to the church in droves and having access more to the same information that we're receiving?
That's part of it.
Yes. What direction will you give them today to connect to that spiritual journey? He just mentioned that get as close to the Ethiopian languages to find out. What would you suggest to them today? Because I'm sitting here listening and I'm saying, I knew it was something wrong when I was reading the Bible too, because as I was reading the book, I always say like, wow, they raped, they killed, they slept with this. It's all in the Old Testament coming up. But they make it seem like it's all in Africa. And then when it gets closer to the New Testament, you see it change to the Greek. Then you see the Savior come for all mankind.
And he looks like Michelangelo's cousin.
Yeah, you see it to the point that after I read it 2 or 3 times, word for word, I had to put it down and say, there are some nice spiritual nuggets. So whoever rewrote the Bible, I came up with, listen, we were talking about hip hop earlier, and I had Mr. Trick Dad, and I remember him saying that I'm tired of your remix to the Bible. And these remixes that we're talking about now is what made me say, if I can read this, it got to be fake for someone to be saying they're studying this all the time and to go against what I'm saying. To justify that, no, that I just believe everything in the Bible is word for word, truth for truth, and that's just what it is. And then I'm looking at it too deep to bring in race. And I'm like, they're doing it right here in the Bible. This is the first story of saying that the Egyptians was bad, that we got to get them out of here. But yet when you found Jesus, where did they hide him at? They hid him in Jesus. He got so much knowledge. He came back from Egypt, which was supposed to be in Africa, and then he came back to lead the world. And it was just too much. Let me just put it down.
All those names you hear in the Bible, Hittites and Hamites and Shemites, and they might as well be termites. These are all black groups. If they're not Greek and they're not Roman, they're not white in that part of the world at that time.
Yes, at that
That's
time.
it. These are all just, and what's something that's made clear in the first part of this book is the profound power of changing names. Like Columbus came over here, and the people today are still called Indians, and it was just his mistake, and it stuck. When you can change, when you come and see some people living and say, you call yourselves this? No, now you're called that. When you rename people, and then that was their pattern of their colonization has been the important part. Slavery here, but colonization in Alkebulan. And an important part of that was coming in and co-opting the people's culture. Aristotle has credit for more books than he could possibly have written in 2 lifetimes if he was
Aristotle, the Greek philosopher.
Yeah, all that stuff was when Alexander and later his general Ptolemy stormed in there and stole all the knowledge and then credited it to their scholars. So this is the habit, or destroy it, where the British cannonaded 10,000 miles of wall at Great Benin. That's Nigeria. That make the Great Wall of China look like Lego. And just
Right.
forget it. Take it, destroy it, or rename it. And renaming is an important first step.
I'd like to interject for young people. I like to mention this book called African Religions by MBT.
John S. M.
John MBT. That's called African Religions by John MBT. And it's not a very long book, but that will give young people a basis on their traditional religions that were practiced. And a lot of what they see in the three Abrahamic religions, a lot of things were actually taken from the origin in our basic religions, organic religions that were practiced in Kemet or Akibulan. Okay, so that's one thing. And naturally, it's a reason why I said what I said earlier, because I always come from a mental health perspective. When I said that King James killed his mother, you understand? Would you actually want to read a book written by a person that killed their mother? You know what I'm saying? That shows you that the person had to be a psychopath.
But
So,
Jesus forgave him, though.
yeah, I said, King, but killing your mother is like is the crime that you're not. This one,
sin is sin.
yeah, it's a crime that you're not forgiven for. And so both of these persons, Constantine that you were talking about, and King James were murderers. So if I was a murderer and killed somebody and then wrote a version of the Bible, would you read it? No. So I'm saying that from a psychological viewpoint, that you're reading text, even though it might be some gems in there, written by people that were mentally ill, at the very least.
Well, I think these books were written for the enslavement of the mind.
Right.
So all of them have some source of have dominion over you, or subject yourself to authority, pay attention to me, or it's going to be
Servants
this.
obey your masters. Stand still.
Yeah,
See the salvation.
all that is kind of through the Bible, and at least through that. But I think that's with all of them. There's some type of subservient attitude that you must have in order to follow. So yes, we're hearing that these things has happened, and it just goes back. You made two references. He made a reference with the Ethiopian Bible and trying to learn those languages, which I'm westernized right now, so I probably never learned those.
But that Ethiopian
And
Bible
then
is out today in
yeah.
English. They have a translation.
Right, and then they have the,
Yeah.
you mentioned a book earlier that you would recommend, which might be something we need to get
The African Religion by John
Right.
MBT.
Right, that we probably need to get have a good talk about that. You missing Aristotle, but I heard you when we met last weekend. You was talking about Philemon. Philemon, is that am I pronouncing that right?
Pythagoras.
Philemon, Philmon.
The
Philemon.
name Philemon is familiar, and I know it occurs in the Bible. Don't have a lot of background.
Philistine.
No, I think it was Philemon. I may be wrong. I thought you had made a mention of it, and but anyway, we'll skip past something. I don't want
one thing you want to look at, brother.
Yeah.
Simon. When you look at the colonialism that the British, French, and Spanish did, when they went to all the black countries and places of people of color, they first used force by going in. Then they bring the religion in after they kill off the elders and what have you.
Don't leave out the Dutch and the Portuguese.
Yeah, Dutch and Portuguese. Just the whole European scene.
Right.
Romans too.
Then you condition the people with the religion, and once you condition their mind, then you don't have to always use physical force to keep them under control, because then everything you're talking about is put in place. So if you look at what they did in India, they wiped out millions of people in India. The British did before they got rid of their religion and their culture. They everywhere they went, they destroyed the people, and they destroyed their culture and their religion. Same thing happened when you talk about Crazy Horse and there's one example of Native Americans where all the Native Americans they wiped them out physically. Then they used chemical warfare. They used smallpox, where we use chemical warfare now. They were using chemical warfare then, and germ warfare. Okay, so it's the same playbook. It's like sports. They use the
Yeah,
same playbook over and over again.
Talking about sending a plane load of Ebola infected people to Kenya. Now,
That's right.
Yeah, but but that's what I'm saying about you observing with the youth right now. If we're sitting here saying that the Dutch, Portuguese, or just the whole Europe,
Right.
all got in with, hey, we're gonna bring gunpowder there. We're gonna shoot and kill.
With
So
the Chinese had
when somebody tell me, oh, Africans sold Africans, I'd be like, no, Africans sold Africans to preserve the Africans that they had there. Because if you fighting with a spear and a brick, and they coming over there with dynamite and gunpowder to preserve your tribe, you may have to say, okay, let's slow the killing down. We may have to do something. Now, listening to you saying that they came in with violence, they came in with religion, which is a better way to help control the mind a different way without the violence. That's what I'm getting back to my original question. Mm-hmm. What do you recommend? Because when I'm listening to that, I'm saying that is why I had to put it down. Though the Bible has been a great read, that you can find different scriptures and say, well, this is where they get every self-help book from.
You have to teach.
Somebody gave it. Whoever copied it from the originators of the Ethiopian, or however it goes.
Those scriptures hand down through wisdom transmits culture to culture, religion to religion. Moses, growing up in the household of Pharaoh Seti, had to recite, I have not killed man nor woman. I have not made light my neighbor's bushel. And 40 other negative confessions. This is long before the Torah is ever put in print. It's in the childhood of Moses and many centuries before him that these are already given. So we need to recognize the real source of things.
But to answer your question, go ahead. For young people today, they have to see culture and we have to teach culture. But they have to see it. When I walk down the street and black kids or people come to me, what's this? Then I give them, well, oral, we become modern day griots just to begin to turn the mind to begin to look at this. Or the person begins to Google and begin to look at something. But imaging, especially when you talk about children have to see the first thing they see is the physical image. That's why they spend so much in marketing to show images that are contrary to our culture. That's why they spend millions of dollars in imaging so that we wear long blonde hair because we're doing this and doing that to get rid of.
Well, I think we have a better opportunity today. Like you're saying, when you wear your attire, you one out of millions. So I think there has to be a better connection when we're saying the Pan-African movement still exists, of being able to celebrate the different cultures.
And we have to see it.
And to see it. So it'd be nice that when Ghana do their celebration, to see all the colors they use and how they dress. When Nigeria do their thing, when South Africa do their thing, when you see the Caribbean islands, they all do their thing. When you go to a Trinidad, when you go to their festival, I mean, they have it's like whoa, they have that culture. I'm married to a Jamaican. I was like, well, baby, I want to go to Trinidad. And she said, I don't want to go because it's just like what they do in Jamaica. Just different, but it's their own culture. So all these different cultures, things that we have, it's not here in America. That best we have is a festival.
The cultures you see in the Caribbean and African descent people in South America reflect the fact that there was a different model of enslavement in the two places. In America, they focused on brainwashing, on acculturation, because they wanted to do a generational model. In the Caribbean and South America, they said, work them to death and bring more. So they didn't worry about what they thought, how they related to each other. Up here on the U.S. mainland, two people just brought over speaking the same language would be separated. They broke down every communication, every vestige of personal or cultural.
And that's all I'm saying. The ones that are in the U.S., and the ones that are outside, when you talk about Caribbean and African, some kind of way we have to utilize this Pan-African thing, or utilize our communication back and forth, because I don't want to consider that our culture is eating hog maws and pig feet.
No, but you see that the things that people improvise.
Those are the
look much like the African forms.
That's
right.
Even the names some
Right.
of the young sisters make up, they sound like African names.
Right.
They don't even realize
Right.
the connection that is still
Right.
holding.
Right. So from when you saying
there.
teaching, we have to be able to identify
Yeah,
those different
children
things
have
to
to
be
see
able to
this.
share. Yeah.
I have a great grandchild now, but my grandchildren, what have you, they wear some of the modern stuff and everything. But the point is, they know their culture because they come and talk to grandpapa and they talk to their parents. All right. So even if you have to make modifications, if you look at the people from India here, you look at the people from Asia here, you understand some of them wear Western clothes because they're in the workplace to make money. And if you talk to them, they'll tell you that I dress like this and do this because we only here to get money. You understand? But they all know their culture. Them kids know their culture, language wise.
Man, I understand it.
And so I'm saying,
I understand it. It's like it's a difference when you say you born in Africa, you came to America at 1 year old, and it's different when somebody that's got to be the age of 18 and 20 then come to America. They're not gonna lose what they have there.
Back home, I play Ola Tuji for my kids. African drummer and dancer. They listen to some of that. I make them sit down and listen to that. Then they listen to James Brown. Then they listen to B.B. King. Then they listen to John Coltrane. And they listen to all these different things. And they listen to Fela. You understand? And Sonny Colson and all that. They say, wow, you hear those beats there? Same beat, same beat, same beat. Just like Fred Wesley said, same beat. It's the same beat, but we putting another thing on it. You know, if you look at the people dancing, with the Holy Ghost dance, and you look at the dances that are done in Africa, it's the same movements, it's the same thing. So I'm talking about when I'm talking to children, you show the relationship.
Yeah.
That they can visually see, and then they become. So then my grandson picks up a book, and now he has 3 or 4 books on African history that I didn't even talk to him about getting. So now he's throwing stuff back on me.
Right.
All because I started him listening to James Brown.
Right. You want to close us with any last thoughts?
The answer you're looking for is a matter of reach and connection.
Right.
Brother
Yes,
Shakur
that's what I'm trying.
About how the young folks react to him, ask for an explanation. Now, if we could duplicate him 1,000 times and send him down the streets of every community all over the country all at once, then that would. So it's a matter of broadcasting it, of reach, of connection. So that's why I'm glad you're doing this media, and we will come back with it over and over and over.
All right. Well, we're gonna keep teaching as much about the wonders of Africa's ancient civilization and learn more about the different cultures outside. And hopefully, if anybody got some comments to share, anybody want to join this conversation, please reach out. Once again, thank you for joining us here at Common Hood. And I'm gonna let you leave a close. You always say, I forget to say that when these two brothers here come, they call it the Conscious Corner on Common Hood.
There you go, bro.
This is Simon P. Dr. Shakur and Khali. We out.